Have you ever felt ignored, misunderstood, or just plain invisible when you speak, while others seem to effortlessly get what they want with just a few words? You're not alone. Most people go through life knowing what they want, but never getting it, simply because they don't know how to communicate it in a way that makes people listen, feel, and act. Let me be blunt. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how skilled you are, or how big your goals are. If you can't persuade, you stay stuck. But here's the truth. The world doesn't teach you in school. Persuasion is the single most valuable skill you can ever master. It's the skill behind winning arguments without raising your voice, closing deals without sounding salesy, leading people without forcing them, attracting opportunities without chasing them, inspiring action without begging for attention. Whether you're trying to grow a business, lead a team, sell a product, win trust, negotiate, a raise, or even build stronger relationships, persuasion is the hidden engine that makes success happen. And the good news, it's a learnable skill. And this book will teach you how. Inside these pages, you'll discover the exact strategies, frameworks, and language patterns used by world-class persuaders, backed by psychology, real-world experience, and 20 years of applied influence tactics. This isn't about manipulation or cheesy sales tricks. This is about learning how to ethically influence others, build instant trust, dissolve resistance, and make your words impossible to ignore. If you're ready to stop being overlooked and start being heard, respected, and followed, then keep reading. Your transformation begins now. Before you start, you're watching Book Suggest. Make sure to subscribe to our channel. Get more powerful audiobooks that help you become 1% better every day. Chapter 1. The Psychology Switch. Understand how people think before you try to change their minds. Persuasion doesn't start with talking. It starts with understanding. Most people make a huge mistake when trying to persuade. They assume others think the same way they do. But persuasion isn't about talking more. It's about thinking differently. It begins not with your mouth, but with your mind. Before you can influence anyone, you must understand how they think, why they make decisions, and what drives their emotions. Without this understanding, you're just guessing. And guessing doesn't persuade. It repels. This chapter is about flipping a mental switch. You're not just learning how to convince others. You're learning how the human brain actually works, so your influence becomes natural, ethical, and powerful. Let's start at the foundation. How people behave. The core principles of human behavior. Humans are emotional creatures who justify their decisions with logic, but make them based on feelings. We like to think we're rational, logical beings, but neuroscience and behavioral psychology say otherwise. In fact, most decisions are made in the emotional part of the brain, the limbic system, before the rational brain, the neocortex, even catches up. This means people buy with emotion and justify with logic. People follow those they feel connected to, not just those who make the most sense. People decide fast and defend their decisions even if they make no rational sense. If you've ever tried to win an argument by being right and still lost, you've already seen this in action. Humans are wired to respond to stories, emotion, belonging, and instinct. And the sooner you align with that truth, the faster you'll become an effective persuader. So how do you actually apply this? By learning how the brain makes shortcuts, also known as cognitive biases. Cognitive biases. The mental shortcuts that drive decisions. Our brains are constantly bombarded with information. To survive and function, we've evolved to use mental shortcuts, known as cognitive biases. These aren't flaws. They're features. They help us make decisions fast without overthinking every detail. But as a persuader, if you understand these biases, you can ethically guide people towards smarter, better decisions without manipulation. Here are just a few that matter most. Confirmation. Biased people look for information that confirms what they already believe. This is why arguing with someone rarely changes their mind. They filter what you say to protect their current worldview. Persuasion tip. Start by agreeing with a piece of their belief, then lead them to the new idea. People resist being pushed, but they follow when they feel understood. Reciprocity. Bias. When someone gives us something, we feel a strong desire to give something back. It's why free samples work, or why you're more likely to say yes to someone who once helped you. Persuasion tip. Give value first. Advice, help, insight. When people feel indebted to you, they're more open to your ideas. Authority bias. We tend to obey or believe people who appear knowledgeable or powerful. Persuasion tip. Position yourself as a credible source. Use data, social proof, and confident delivery. People are persuaded by those who seem like leaders. Scarcity bias. When something seems rare, our brain believes it's more valuable. It's why limited time offers and only 3 left in stock increase urgency. Persuasion tip. Frame your offer or idea as exclusive, time-sensitive, or rare, but only if it's genuine. Social proof. Bias. We tend to do what others are doing, especially if we're unsure. Persuasion tip. Mention how others have benefited, agreed, or acted on your advice. People trust the crowd, especially in uncertain moments. Why logic fails and emotion wins. Let's get one thing clear. Logic is important, but it's not the starting point of persuasion. Imagine you're selling a fitness program. If you only say, "This workout burns 500 calories in 30 minutes, you're giving a logical benefit, but logic doesn't stick. Now say, imagine looking in the mirror and finally loving what you see. Imagine walking into a room and feeling proud of how you look. That's what this 30-minute workout gives you. That's emotional. That connects. That persuades. Humans are emotional first, rational second. If you ignore emotions, you're speaking to a brain that isn't even listening yet. Emotions create motion. Logic justifies it. This is true in every field: sales, marketing, leadership, relationships. The sooner you start speaking to emotions, the more influential you become. The trust trigger. Influence begins with connection. Now let's talk about the gateway to all persuasion: trust. No one will listen to you, follow you, or buy from you if they don't trust you. You could have the best product, the best idea, or the most accurate advice in the world, and it would still fall flat if the person doesn't feel safe with you. Trust doesn't come from fancy language. It comes from alignment. Here's how to build trust fast. Mirror their language and energy, people. Trust those who feel familiar. When you subtly reflect someone's tone, pace, or vocabulary, their brain says, "This person gets me." Lead with empathy. Start by showing you understand their struggle. Talk about their pain before you pitch your solution. It shows you care. And people trust those who care. Be honest about limitations. Ironically, admitting what your product, idea, or service can't do often builds more trust than just hyping it up. Honesty is magnetic. Tell the truth, early, even a small truth up front. This might not be for everyone. Builds credibility. The brain goes, if they're telling me this, they're probably telling the truth about everything else too. Persuasion is a mind game. Play it ethically. Let's pause and zoom out. You've just learned that people make emotional decisions, not logical ones. Cognitive biases control behavior more than reason. Trust is the foundation of all influence. Empathy, familiarity, and perceived authority shape how your message is received. Now imagine combining all of that. You'd be a force of nature. But here's the key. Persuasion is not manipulation. Manipulation is selfish. Persuasion is service. If your message, product, or idea genuinely helps others, then persuasion is how you serve them better. The goal is to change minds ethically by understanding how the human brain works and using that knowledge to make both your life and theirs better. The mental shift that changes everything. Most people try to persuade like this. Here's what I want. Here's why I'm right. Here's why you should listen to me. But Persuasion Mastery flips that. It sounds more like, what do they want? How do they think? What's the best way to lead them to a better outcome? That switch from me to them is the foundation of this entire book. That's why we call this chapter the psychology switch. You're not just becoming a better communicator. You're becoming a mind reader, a motivator, a trusted guide. And this is just the beginning. Chapter 2. Words that win. Master the language patterns that unlock attention and agreement. Words are not just words. They are triggers. Have you ever heard someone say something simple, yet you couldn't stop thinking about it all day? Or read a sales page, and before you knew it, you were entering your credit card info? That's not magic. That's linguistic persuasion in action. In this chapter, we're going to explore the science of powerful language. The specific words, sentence, structures, and psychological triggers that make people stop scrolling, lean in and say, "Tell me more." You'll never look at language the same way again. Because once you learn the words that win, every conversation becomes an opportunity to influence. Let's dive in. The invisible power of framing is how you present an idea, offer, or message. It changes how people feel about the same information, without changing the facts. Example, 90% survival rate versus 10% chance of death. Same statistic, completely different emotional impact. This is framing. Humans don't respond to facts. We respond to how facts feel. You can take the same product, idea, or outcome and make it irresistible or repulsive depending on how you frame it. Here are 3 powerful ways to frame your message. A. Gain versus loss. Framing. People are more motivated to avoid loss than to gain something. Don't miss out on this opportunity is more powerful than take advantage of this opportunity. Use loss aversion when you want urgency. But if you want to build excitement, flip it. Imagine how your life will change after using this. Focus on the transformation, not just the features. B. Future pacing help people mentally time travel. Instead of explaining what your product or idea does, let them feel what life is like after they say yes. 6 months from now, you'll look back and wonder how you ever lived without this. Picture yourself waking up stress-free, knowing everything is under control. Future pacing makes the brain experience the benefit now and makes taking action feel urgent and rewarding. C. Friction. Free framing. Make your offer feel effortless and low risk. Avoid words that imply difficulty like work, try, effort, or struggle. Instead, use simple, step by step, instant access, even if, e.g., even if you've never done this before. Friction. Hesitation. Your job is to remove it. The trigger words that activate the brain. Some words light up the brain like a Christmas tree. Neurologists and marketers have tested these over and over. When used correctly, they increase attention, trust, and action. Here are the most persuasive words you can use in conversations, sales copy, emails, or even social media. You people care about themselves. When you say you make your Message personal. You're going to love this. Here's what you get. Because adding because instantly increases compliance. It gives the brain a reason, even if it's weak. Example from a real Harvard study. Can I cut the line? No. 60% success. Can I cut the line because I'm in a rush? Oh, 94% success. Imagine this activates the brain's visual center. It pulls people into a mental movie. Imagine waking up to your dream life. Imagine closing the biggest deal of your career. Secret, hidden, little known. We're hardwired to seek out exclusive or rare information. These words create curiosity. The secret most top performers never talk about. Little-known trick that saves you hours. Now, instantly. Today, the brain craves immediacy. These words push us to act. Start now. Instant access. Free this word triggers a dopamine response, even in adults. But use it wisely. Free can reduce perceived value. Use it to create movement, not to sell everything for nothing. Sentence structures that stick and sell words are powerful, but how you arrange them makes them unforgettable. Here are 3 structures that turn ordinary sentences into persuasive gold. A. The if-then frames simple cause and effect. If you're tired of feeling stuck, then this system will give you clarity. It sets up a logical and emotional pathway. B. What most people don't know. This creates curiosity and authority at the same time. What most entrepreneurs don't know about sales is killing their business. It positions you as a guide, and people lean in to avoid missing out. C. Even if. Clauses, this removes objections before they appear. Even if you've failed before, this method still works. Even if you don't have a big budget. It anticipates resistance and replaces it with confidence. Storytelling. The Trojan horse of persuasion. Want to know what bypasses logic, triggers emotion, and keeps people hooked? Stories. A well-told story is the most persuasive tool on earth. Why? Because stories make people feel. And when people feel, they act. You don't need to be a novelist. Just use this simple structure. The 3-part persuasive story framework. The struggle. Start with a problem, frustration, or conflict the reader relates to. The shift, introduce a moment of insight, a solution, or change in thinking. The success show, the transformation, result, or reward. Example. Just 6 months ago, I was terrified to speak in public. I'd stutter, forget my points, and panic. Then I discovered a simple breathing technique and practiced it for 5 minutes a day. Last month I spoke in front of 300 people and actually enjoyed it. That story is more persuasive than 10 bullet points about public speaking tips. Stories sell. Tips are forgotten. So turn your points into tiny stories and you'll own attention. The subtle shift from selling to solving. This is one of the biggest mindset changes in persuasion. Stop trying to convince. Start trying to help. When you shift from, I want to sell this, to I want to solve your problem, everything changes. Your language softens. Your tone becomes warmer. Your words become magnetic. Use these phrases to shift from pressure to partnership. Here's what I've seen work for others like you. You might find this useful. Let's figure this out together. Here's how I can help. Remember, people don't buy because they understand you. They buy because they feel understood by you. The language of the A. Resistance removal. Even if your message is amazing, people still hesitate. Why? Because we're wired to protect ourselves from risk. That's where resistance language comes in. These subtle changes reduce fear, tension, and objections. Use option language instead of commands. You need to try this. You might want to explore this option. It gives them power, and people love feeling in control. Use maybe language to reduce pushback. This is the best method. This might be the easiest way for you. It's softer, but still persuasive. C. Use what if to unlock possibility. You should do this. What if this one idea doubled your results? What if sparks curiosity without pressure? The close. Without being pushy. The end of a persuasive message is just as important as the beginning. But here's the mistake most people make. They go for the hard sell. They sound needy or forceful. Instead, use permission-based closing. Let your reader or listener feel like it's their choice. That's what gives them confidence to say yes. Examples. If this sounds like something you'd find useful, I'd love to show you how it works. Feel free to reach out if you want to explore this further. No pressure, but if you're ready, I'm here to help. Persuasion isn't about control. It's about guidance. And great closers sound like helpful guides, not pushy salespeople. Chapter 3. Authority without arrogance position. Yourself as credible without coming off as pushy. There's a fine line between commanding respect and craving it. Most people either try too hard to be taken seriously, or they don't even bother trying. But the real winners, they understand that true authority doesn't have to shout. It's quiet, calm, certain. Authority that doesn't reek of arrogance is magnetic. It pulls people in instead of pushing them away. In this chapter, we're going to break down how to build invisible status, create instant trust in any interaction, use subtle proof and social signals to influence, and become a person who naturally earns respect, without ever bragging. Invisible status. The art of showing without showing. Let's start with a concept that top performers and admired leaders master early on: invisible status. This is the kind of authority you never have to announce, because people feel it. It's the vibe you carry, not the words you say. It's in your tone, your timing, your ability to stay calm when others are losing it. In any room, status is constantly being measured, even when no one is speaking. Think about someone who walks into a meeting room quietly, sits at the table without trying to dominate, listens deeply, and only speaks when they have something valuable to say. That person often ends up being the one everyone listens to. Why? Because real authority doesn't compete for attention. It commands it effortlessly. Invisible status is built through consistency, results, and reputation. It's not given to you because of your title or the loudness of your voice. It's earned because you've demonstrated value over time. You've shown you're someone people can trust, not because you told them, but because they experienced it. In fact, the more you try to show status, the more it backfires. It becomes neediness. It screams insecurity. That's why name-dropping, bragging, and interrupting make people roll their eyes instead of lean in. Invisible status, on the other hand, is humble confidence paired with undeniable results. The silent achiever always wins long-term, creating instant trust. The shortcut to influence people makes snap decisions. They decide in seconds whether to trust you, buy from you, or follow your lead. That's why creating instant trust in any interaction is a superpower. And no, you don't have to fake anything to do it. Start by being clear and congruent. If your words, tone, and body language don't align, people feel it immediately. For example, if you say, "I believe in this," while fidgeting, speaking softly, or looking away, your energy betrays your message. People don't just listen to what you say. They feel how much you believe it. That's the key. Trust begins when people believe you believe yourself. Then comes clarity. The more clearly you communicate, the more confident you seem. Uncertainty repels authority. If you say, "Well, I think maybe we could try this," you've already lost the room. But if you say, "Here's the best course of action based on what we know," people naturally follow. It's not about pretending to be perfect. It's about owning your perspective with calm confidence. Another shortcut to trust is speaking last. When you let others share first, you earn credibility by listening. And when you finally speak, your words carry more weight. Try it in your next meeting. Listen patiently. Ask great questions and speak only after everyone else has. Your ideas will feel stronger, even if they're not radically different. That's the power of positioning. One more tactic: tell the truth, especially when it's inconvenient. People trust those who are willing to share uncomfortable truths. If you can, say, "Here's where we failed, and what we're doing to fix it." Your credibility skyrockets. Most people hide mistakes or sugarcoat bad news. That's why being radically honest, without being rude, makes you stand out as trustworthy. Proof: social signals and presence. The authority. Trifecta authority doesn't have to be loud, but it does have to be backed up. That's where proof and social signals come in. Let's break them down. Proof is simple. Results speak louder than intentions. Want to be seen as a trusted expert? Show people the evidence. That might mean sharing data, case studies, testimonials, or personal stories that demonstrate results. But here's the key: present your proof subtly. Don't shove it in people's faces. Think of it like seasoning in a good dish. Enough to add flavor, not so much that it ruins the meal. For example, instead of saying, "I've helped hundreds of clients and made millions of dollars," you could say, "Last quarter, a client applied this and saw a 42% increase in sales." That one line contains a massive signal of competence, without arrogance. Social signals: humans are wired to look at what others are doing to decide what's safe and credible. That's why social signals matter. If others respect you, follow you, or work with you, it instantly increases your perceived authority. This could be being featured in a podcast or media outlet, having well-known clients, getting invited to speak at events, being quoted or recommended by respected people. Again, the key is subtlety. You don't have to flash these around. Let others discover your social proof naturally, or share it through storytelling. For instance, I was on a call with a client from Forbes last week who was struggling with this exact problem. That one sentence gives a powerful social signal, but you didn't brag. You simply mentioned it in context. Presence is one of the most underrated forms of authority. It's the way you hold space. When you speak, do people stop scrolling and start listening? Here's how to cultivate it. Slow down. People with presence don't rush. They pause. They let silence sit. It creates gravity. Hold eye contact. Not aggressively, but comfortably. This signals confidence and groundedness. Be intentional with words. People with presence don't ramble. They speak in short, clear, impactful sentences. Take up space. Stand tall. Breathe deeply. Don't shrink yourself physically or verbally. Presence isn't loud. It's felt. And once you build it, people will start treating you with more respect before you even open your mouth. How to become a magnet of respect. Respect isn't demanded, it's attracted. And becoming someone others respect consistently has little to do with being impressive, and everything to do with being aligned. Here's what that means. You do what you say you'll do. You don't exaggerate. You treat others with kindness and boundaries. You're not reactive. You hold your own standards high, but don't impose them on others. You're generous without trying to be liked. These traits are rare. That's why people respect them. Also, respect grows when you become someone others can count on. Reliability is a status signal. Most people overpromise and underdeliver. If you do the opposite, underpromise and overdeliver, you'll stand out fast. Here's a practical way to do this. If you say you'll follow up in 24 hours, follow up in 12. If you commit to a result, beat it. And if you can't, be transparent early. This builds what we call predictable excellence. People may not love flashy personalities, but they always trust the consistent ones. Why arrogance kills authority. Before we end this chapter, let's be clear. Authority and arrogance are not the same. In fact, arrogance is a disguise for insecurity. When someone talks too much about themselves, interrupts, corrects others constantly, or tries to dominate, it's usually because they feel threatened. True authority doesn't feel the need to win every interaction. It knows that respect is earned, not extracted. So, how do you avoid arrogance while still owning your worth? Here's a checklist. Speak less about yourself, more about the problem you solve. Credit others when credit is due. Ask more questions than you answer. Share wins, but also share lessons and failures. Speak with certainty, but stay open to being wrong. These traits signal emotional intelligence and strength, and they separate the respected leaders from the try-hard ones. Chapter 4. Emotional hooks. Speak to the heart before you aim for the mind. Have you ever tried to convince someone with logic and facts only to have them ignore you? Or worse, push back harder? That's because humans don't make decisions with logic. We justify decisions with logic, but we make them with emotion. Every sale, every yes, every action taken is driven by one thing first: feeling. Whether you're selling a product, pitching an idea, or trying to inspire a team, if you can't make people feel something, they won't do anything. That's why in this chapter, we'll unpack how to use emotional hooks to get attention, build connection, and drive action. You'll learn the science behind emotional storytelling, how to tap into deep psychological triggers like fear, hope, and curiosity, and how to use metaphors and analogies to bypass resistance and make your message unforgettable. The science of storytelling. Why emotion always wins? Let's start with the obvious truth. Facts inform, but stories move. When neuroscientists studied the brain during storytelling, they found something powerful. When you hear a story, multiple parts of your brain light up. Not just the language centers, but also the emotional and sensory areas. If the story includes a smell, your olfactory cortex lights up. If it includes action, your motor cortex gets involved. Stories make the brain feel like it's experiencing the event. This is called neural coupling, and it's the reason great speakers, leaders, and marketers use stories, not statistics, to win hearts. In fact, a Princeton study showed that when a storyteller shares a story emotionally, the brains of the storyteller and the listener begin to sync. That's right, their brain waves align. This creates deep connection and trust, faster than any bullet point ever could. But here's the kicker: not all stories work. You can't just tell a story and expect magic. The story has to touch something universal. It has to speak to shared human desires and fears. Let's explore those next. The Big Four. Emotional triggers: fear, hope, curiosity, and desire. If you want people to listen, remember, and act, you have to press the right emotional buttons. Over the years, four emotions have proven to be the most effective at capturing attention and driving action. Fear. The oldest motivator, fear, gets a bad reputation. But used ethically, it's one of the most powerful tools in communication. Why? Because it's primal. Your brain is hardwired to scan for danger. That's why headlines like, "Are you making this one mistake with your money?" get more clicks than "Tips for better financial habits." Fear-based hooks work when they shine a light on a real risk, danger, or loss. and then show how to avoid it. But here's the rule. Never use fear without offering a way out. Fear without hope creates paralysis. Fear with a solution creates action. For example, most small business owners don't realize they're losing 25% of revenue due to one simple pricing mistake. Here's how to fix it. That's fear, plus curiosity, plus a promise of hope. It works. Hope, the ultimate energy source. Hope is what keeps people going when they're exhausted. It's the feeling that change is possible. When you offer hope, you give people permission to believe in something better for their health, finances, relationships, or future. Great brands, movements, and leaders sell hope. They paint a picture of what could be. They show the transformation possible if someone takes action. Instead of saying, "Here's how to save more money," say, "Imagine waking up debt-free. No calls from collectors. No stress. Just freedom. Here's how we make that happen." Hope invites people into a better story. Curiosity, the invisible hook. The brain hates unanswered questions. That's why curiosity is a secret weapon in emotional communication. If you can create an open loop, a tension that demands closure, PBLOKX will keep reading, watching, or listening just to resolve it. TV shows use this all the time with cliffhangers. You can do the same in your content. Why 97% of smart people fail at this one habit. The simple psychological trick that made me $100,000 in 30 days. What billionaires do differently that no one talks about. Curiosity works best when it feels like the answer will give the reader power, status, or relief. Desire. The inner flame humans want more. More money, more love, more confidence, more peace. That's desire. It's not a bad thing. In fact, when tapped ethically, it helps people take action on things they already need. Your job isn't to create desire, it's to channel it. Understand what your audience already wants deeply, then show them a clear, emotionally satisfying path to get it. When you connect what you offer with what they crave emotionally, resistance disappears. Using analogies and metaphors to bypass resistance. Ever had someone say, "I get it now," after hearing your explanation? Chances are, you used a metaphor. That's because metaphors bypass the logical brain and go straight to understanding. They take a complex idea and make it click by comparing it to something familiar. Here's why they work. They reduce cognitive effort. The brain loves shortcuts. They create vivid imagery, more memorable. They lower resistance. You're not telling, you're showing. Let's say you're explaining SEO, search engine optimization, to a client who doesn't get it. Instead of saying, "SEO is about optimizing your site for search engines," say, "Think of SEO like building roads to your shop. Without SEO, it's like having a great store in the middle of a jungle. No one knows how to find you." Boom. Light bulb moment. Or if you're explaining a productivity method, say, "Most people treat their time like a buffet. They try to do everything. But success comes from treating time like a sushi chef. Cutting away everything except what's essential." Use metaphor. Often. It sticks. Case studies, emotional persuasion, done right. Let's look at real-world examples of emotional hooks that changed behavior, sold millions, or created movements. Apple's Think Different campaign. Apple didn't sell processors and RAM. They sold identity. By showing images of Einstein, Gandhi, and Martin Luther King Jr., and pairing it with the line, "Think Different," they emotionally hooked creative misfits and rebels. They weren't saying, "Buy our computers." They were saying, "If you believe in changing the world, you belong with us." That's emotional marketing at its finest. Charity, Waters storytelling. Scott Harrison, founder of charity Water, knew that facts about global water shortages wouldn't move people, so he told stories of real kids drinking dirty water, of mothers walking 6 miles for a single bucket, of communities transformed after getting a clean well. He used emotional storytelling to turn invisible statistics into human urgency. That strategy helped raise over $700 million for clean water. Nike's Find Your Greatness. Instead of showing superstar athletes, Nike showed an overweight boy running down the street. Why? Because they weren't selling sportswear. They were selling the belief that greatness lives in everyone. It triggered hope, identity, and empowerment, and it became one of their most viral campaigns. How to craft your own emotional hook, step by step. Let's make this practical. Here's a 5-step formula to craft emotional hooks for your message. Step 1. Identify the core emotion you want to evoke. Start with the emotional state you want your audience to feel. Is it urgency, relief, confidence, belonging? Don't write until you know this. Step 2. Find the deeper human need. What does your audience really want? Not just surface-level desires, but core needs like security status, autonomy connection, freedom growth. Align your message with that need. Step 3. Tell a story, or use a visual metaphor. Humans are story-driven. Share a personal moment, client, transformation, or relatable struggle, or use a metaphor that paints a picture. Example: starting a business feels like jumping out of a plane and trying to sew the parachute on the way down. That metaphor evokes risk, urgency, and fear, while also promising growth. Step 4. Insert curiosity and tension. Create an open loop. Ask a question. Share an odd stat. Say something unexpected. Here's why working harder might actually be killing your productivity. Step 5. Offer a path with hope or power. Always end with forward motion. Show that action will lead to relief, progress, or clarity. Here's the 3-step process I used to go from $0 to $10K a month without ads. That's a hope hook that makes people lean in. Chapter 6. Objection. Alchemy. Turn no into maybe and maybe into yes. Effortlessly. Every time you present an idea, offer a product, or pitch a service, you enter a mental negotiation with the other person. Whether it's a sales call, a tweet, a sales page, or a conversation with a client, there's one thing you can count on. Objections will arise. And that's not a bad thing, because objections aren't rejection. They're resistance. And resistance is simply a sign that your message is rubbing up against your prospect's belief system. Once you understand this, you no longer fear objections. You welcome them. Because when handled correctly, an objection is the doorway to trust, clarity, and conversion. That's what this chapter is about. Mastering the art of objection alchemy. Transforming resistance into resonance. Turning I'm not sure into tell me more. And transforming maybe later into let's do this now. Let's dive in. Why objections happen, and why they're actually good news. Before you learn to handle objections, you need to understand what causes them. Most people think objections are bad. They believe that if someone raises an objection, like it's too expensive or I don't have time, they've lost the sale. But here's the truth. An objection means they're interested enough to think critically. Think about it. If someone had no interest, they wouldn't bother giving you an excuse. They'd scroll past, click away, or ghost you. Objections mean the brain is engaging with your message. It's just wrestling with friction. That friction usually comes from fear of making a bad decision, lack of clarity or understanding, conflicting beliefs or priorities, low trust, or missing proof. So objections aren't signs of rejection. They're buying signals, but only if you know how to respond with empathy, clarity, and confidence. Pre-framing. Defusing objections before they arise. The best way to deal with objections. Handle them before they show up. That's what pre-framing does. Pre-framing is about setting the mental stage so that doubts are addressed proactively, not reactively. Think of it like this. If you know someone will object to the price, you don't wait for them to raise the concern. You bring it up first and reframe it as value. Example. Instead of waiting for a customer to say, "This is too expensive," you say early on, "This isn't the cheapest option," and that's intentional. We designed this for people who want results, not regrets. It's for those who understand the cost of doing nothing is far higher than the cost of doing this right. Boom. You just neutralized a future objection with confidence and logic. But more importantly, you did it before the fear could take hold. Here are common objections you can pre-frame. Objection. Pre-frame example. It's too expensive. If price is your only filter, this might not be a fit. But if ROI matters more than cost, you'll love what we're about to explore. I need to think about it. You should think about this. It's not for everyone. But if what you're about to hear feels aligned, you'll know it. I've tried before and failed. Most of our clients have failed before. That's exactly why they come to us. Pre-framing turns you from a salesperson into a trusted guide. And that's what people follow. Reframing doubts into desires. Objections are often hidden desires in disguise. Let's take a few examples. It's too expensive. This often means, I don't yet see the value. Reframe it. What if this actually saved you more than it cost? I don't have time. Usually means, I'm overwhelmed and unsure it's worth prioritizing. Reframe it. What if this actually gave you more time by eliminating what's wasting yours? I need to think about it. Often means, I'm scared of making the wrong move. Reframe it. What would help you feel 100% clear about the next step? The key is to dig beneath the surface of the objection. Most objections are icebergs. What you see on the surface is only 10%. The real fears are hidden underneath. Use gentle, respectful language to bring those fears to the surface, then reframe them into desires. How to handle skepticism with elegance, not argument. Skepticism is healthy. In fact, you want your audience to be skeptical because when they cross the bridge to belief, they become fiercely loyal. But skepticism must be handled with elegance. Here's what not to do. Argue, defend, over-explain, get emotional. Instead, you want to use a powerful communication technique called disarming. Disarming skepticism means agreeing first, then redirecting. When someone says, I don't think this will work for me, you say, honestly? That's a fair reaction. If I were you, I'd probably feel the same. Here's what helped me shift my thinking. You agree first. This disarms their brain and lowers defensiveness. Now they're listening. Now you can reframe. This technique is used by the best negotiators in the world. Why? Because it lowers resistance. And once resistance drops, belief can grow. Use this three-step approach for elegant objection handling. The three-step objection dissolve formula. This formula works whether you're in a live call, writing a sales page, or responding to a skeptical email. It's simple, respectful, and incredibly effective. Step 1. Acknowledge. People want to be seen and heard. The worst thing you can do is bulldoze an objection. Instead, say, I get it. You're absolutely right to ask that. A lot of people feel that way at first. This signals empathy. not defensiveness. Step 2. Bridge. Now that you've validated their concern, offer a smooth transition. Here's what most people don't realize. Let me offer a different way to look at it. What helped me think differently was this. This creates an open mind. You're not forcing a change. You're inviting one. Step 3. Reframe. Now reframe the objection into a reason to act. What if this cost actually saved you 10x down the road? If you failed before, that means you're not starting from zero. You're starting with experience. If time is tight, maybe now is the moment to stop wasting it on what's not working. You're flipping the objection from a blocker into a driver of action. Let's walk through a full example. Example: I don't have time. Acknowledge. Totally get that. Life's busy, and time is a real constraint. Bridge. That's actually what made me curious about this in the first place. Reframe. I realized I was spending hours on things that weren't moving me forward. This helped me get 80% of results with 20% of the effort. That's what made it worth the time investment. This formula works because it respects the human in the conversation, not just the transaction. Advanced tactic. Objection, handling inside your stories. One of the best ways to pre-handle objections without sounding salesy is to embed the objection and its resolution into a story. Example: when I first saw this, I rolled my eyes. Another course? Another promise? I'd already spent thousands, but something about this felt different. So I gave it a shot, and within a week, I knew I was onto something. Now, 6 months later, I wish I'd found it sooner. That story just crushed 3 objections. This won't work. I've tried before. I don't want to waste money. Always remember, when your story mirrors your prospects' fears, they feel seen. And when you show how those fears were overcome, they feel hope. Final words. The alchemy of yes objection alchemy is not about being clever. It's about being human. Objections aren't obstacles. They're opportunities. They give you insight into your customer's worldview. And if you listen carefully, they'll tell you exactly what they need to believe in order to say yes. Here's your mental checklist. Pre-frame doubts early. Listen with empathy. Reframe resistance into desire. Tell stories that dissolve fear. Lead with clarity, not pressure. And above all, stay calm, confident, and clear. The people who buy from you, follow you, or believe in you aren't the ones who had no objections. They're the ones whose objections you honored, addressed, and transformed. That's the real alchemy. And once you master it, you'll never fear the word no again.